Yes. Good morning, Mr. Musigidi.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners.
Thank you. Yes.
Chair, we have Deputy Commissioner Sean Bolhuis from the TMPD to assist us as a witness for today. Chair, before you saw in the witness, just maybe to give context so that we understand from which angle he's coming from. The Commission would have had evidence from Commissioner Spies, especially in relation to the tender 2016-2017. But the Chair will remember that his evidence was limited to his arrival at the TMPD, which was in March 2025, going forward. Now, the relevance of this particular witness is that before Mr. Spies took over in March, he was the caretaker in what we call now the APSS unit or department. So for at least a period of 8 months, he would have been the person responsible for this. And most of the issues that we are battling with relating to this commission would have happened during his tenure as caretaker of that unit. So his evidence, it has to be treated with that caution that immediately after February, then Spies would have taken over. And he spoke to what he could to the Commission Chair. So that's just the context I need to give to the Commission so that we know why he's here.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Musigidi.
Thank you, Chair.
Will the witness be swearing or affirming? Affirming. Good morning, Ms. Bolhuis. Yeah. Do you affirm? Oh, please switch on both mics.
On? Now?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes. Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are going to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do affirm that.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Musigidi.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Bolhuis, in front of you, you should have 2 files, almost identical. I want us to go through those files so that we can get rid of the housekeeping issues. Now, if you go to the first file, you will see on the spine, it will say Mr. Bolhuis' statement and annexures.
That's correct, yes.
Yes. Now, the first page will be an index, and then if you flip over that index, can you identify the document there?
Just say again, apologies.
So the first page is an index, and then if you flip over that page, can you identify the document there, what is written there in the middle?
Yeah, it's the witness statement of myself.
Yes. And then can you go to the last page, which is page 6 of that statement? Now, do you confirm that this statement is your statement?
I do confirm that.
Do you stand by the contents thereof?
Yes.
And then, Deputy Commissioner, do you confirm that the signature on page 6 is your signature?
It's my signature.
Thank you. Commissioners, at this point, just to note that I think Commissioner Kumalo's bundles are not signed statements. We will sort them out at the end of the hearing. But Commissioner Bolhuis and the chairperson's statements or the witness statements should be duly signed.
But the content is the same.
The content is exactly the same.
Commissioner Kumalo's.
Yes.
All right. Thank
The
you.
one that we've just looked at is signed.
Well, then my attorneys did a spelling job. Thank you.
Just to find out, Mr. Musigidi, the 6-page statement. Has its content not been incorporated into the longer statement, the 15-page statement?
It has been.
It has. Oh, right.
Yes, it has been, Chairperson.
So basically, we should work with the 15-page statement.
In an ideal situation, I would have said, let's do away with it, so the first file. But out of abundance of caution, because I also received the second file, in case things went missing,
Oh, okay.
I would want to keep it, Chairperson.
All right. Okay.
ideally would have said, let's do away with it.
Okay.
But for the better part of the witness evidence, we'll be
Will be
focusing on the
longer.
duly incorporated statement. That's correct, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Please continue then.
Thank you, Mr. Bolhuis. Then can we move to the second file?
Something important which we forgot, Deputy Commissioner. Let's have your names on record, please, your full names.
Yes,
You want to state your full names, yeah?
I will, Commissioner. All my names is Sean Ian Edward Eugene, and my surname is Bolhuis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Now, on the second file, you'll see on the spine, it will say supplementary statement of Sean Ian Edward Eugene Bolhuis.
That's
And then the first page is an index, and then if you go on the third page, on the first page, it's an index, and the second page, it's a table of contents, and the trim lines there, you'll see that is your statement. Can you confirm that this is your statement, Commissioner Bolhuis?
I can confirm.
Yes, can you go then to page 15 of that statement? Do you stand by the contents of the statement?
I do.
Thank you. And then you lastly confirm the signature appearing on page 15 of that statement.
That's my signature.
Thank you. Commissioner Bolhuis, for the better part of our engagement, we'll be focusing on this particular file. If we need to go to the first file, I would draw that to your attention. So keep this one closer. And perhaps let's start on page 2 of the file right in front of you. You have already put your names on record. Can you then start with the introduction part at paragraph 1 of that statement and read that into record? As we discussed earlier, where you need to elaborate, you can elaborate. Where we need to interject, we interject, especially the commissioners, if they need some clarity, they will do so as you go through your statement. So please do not be alarmed when they interject to ask clarity-seeking questions. I might often also do so. Let's start at paragraph 1 then.
Noted. Thank you. Commissioners, I am an adult male South African citizen and the Deputy Chief of Police for Training and Innovation in the City of Tshwane Metropolitan Police Department, which is known as TMPD. Having assumed this role on 1 June 2024, I was recommended by a panel consisting of the Chief of Police and other senior city officials. The facts deposed to herein are within my personal knowledge and are to the best of my belief both true and correct, save where context indicates other.
Thank you. We can move to paragraph 3 under the topic of your educational and career background.
Oh, Deputy Commissioner, the save where context indicates otherwise suggests that what you say may not be true and correct depending on context.
No, but
No, I'm sure that's not what you meant. I suspect it must be the lawyers who let you down there.
lawyer language.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioners. Educational and career background. I'm a career traffic officer / Metro Police officer since 1992. I started my career as a traffic officer in the then Pretoria municipality. The traffic department then evolved into the Metro Police Department. I am still employed by the City of Tshwane as a Metro Police officer. In total, I have 34 years of experience in the municipality. I have a career-related ITO 3-year national diploma and an ITO 4 higher diploma. I have a valid top secret security clearance certificate, which will expire in December 2026. I am in the process of starting the vetting process again.
Commissioner, let me just stop you there. Can you explain what you mean by, what is the purpose of this top security clearance certificate and the process it takes, and whom is expected to undertake or go through that process? Keep in mind that a witness came before this commission from a different municipality and gave evidence that, in fact, there is a requirement or a directive under that department that high-ranking officials ought to do the vetting process for the purposes of maintaining this. So what I need you to at least inform us in the commission is the processes involved, whom, according to you, in the TMPD is required to undergo this process to obtain the clearance certificate.
Thank you. I will do that. Commissioners, let me start first by indicating it's not a lawful requirement yet in the city, although it should be. I do believe with the security committee in place, it will be a recommendation and a premise for the city to start from ensuring high level of security aligned to the MIS document that's approved and implemented and also adopted by council in the city of Tshwane. I can't recall the date. So those bases or building blocks are in place, but as I indicated, it's not policy yet, although all high-level positions in the city of Tshwane, when advertised, it's now a requirement within the advertised that you avail yourself for vetting purposes, for security clearance. In the Metro Police itself, I am a Deputy Chief of Police. It is imperative that your senior management of a Metro Police must be vetted. If I had a way to force it through, I would, as I'm also the Chief of Staff, which I will explain later. But it is cumbersome for me to think, and I won't mention names, that certain senior officials refuse to get themselves vetted. I immediately availed myself for vetting because it's required of me in my position when I deal with sensitive information, not only internally in the department, but also in the city of Tshwane, but also on IGR levels, that I can deal with these documents procedurally and lawfully in a correct way. I gladly submitted myself for this vetting process, and so must all other senior officials. Some do, some don't. But that's a matter that we are still addressing within the department and in the city.
But it's RGR levels.
Excuse me, Commissioner?
Said also in RGR levels. What is that?
We, in IGR, Intergovernmental Relations, we work a lot with sensitive meetings, sensitive material. So not all of it, but some of the information, especially if it relates to maybe a national state that we find ourselves, and there's sensitive information, you need to deal with that according to the MIS document. So vetting is very important.
Deputy Commissioner, when you say some officials refuse to be vetted, are we talking the general vetting or the top secret vetting? Because my understanding is there's a difference. There's the vetting that all staff members or all officers, law officers in TMPD would be subjected to. And my understanding, of the evidence of the chief of police was that annually there is vetting of all officers, and that is conducted every year. And I thought that's different from your top secret.
I can explain that, Commissioner.
Please.
What the Chief of Police was referencing to, if I understand your statement correctly, is the security clearance. It's also commonly known as vetting, but it's not a full vetting. It's just security clearance. That process is ongoing on a yearly basis, where we check for criminal and illicit records against members within the department and certain members in the city when so requested by the city manager. The vetting I'm referring to is a full vetting done by, in our case as a municipality, by State Security Agency, and it is a part lifestyle audit, financial check, proper vetting, your whole history, all your girlfriends, all your boyfriends, all your ex-wives, all those things. They check it all, and then you're either cleared or you're not cleared.
And that's the one that you say it's not yet required by law.
Yes.
Is that the one you're referring to?
It's not in formal policy yet by the
Yes.
city, but it should be.
Okay, that's what I mean. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So you and I are cleared, Commissioner Bolhuis.
I'm cleared of all of those things.
You and I are cleared.
Both of us, yes, we are cleared. Yes, Commissioner. So maybe the rest of the room must leave now.
Commissioner Bolhuis, are you aware of any steps or measures that the city has taken, at least in future, to ensure that this vetting is not an issue, or it's not raised as an issue by the incumbent officials?
Yes. As indicated in adverts now for senior positions, it is a requirement that you avail yourself for vetting. On lower positions, it would be for security clearance or to check for criminal records. Those adverts are it's public knowledge. You would see that. So it's open to the public. And then the other portion that I just touched on, it is the job of the security committee, which has been established. Is it in full swing, full working? I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure of the doings of the security committee at the moment, but they do sit from time to time. And part of their function would be to advise the city to put in policy in place that certain levels and certain positions, depending on the type of position and what you do, what's your functionality in those positions. For an example, if you work in the finance office or the supply chain management processes, you should be properly vetted. Properly vetted, and then also senior management, whatever is deemed senior, and then you can get different types of vetting. Not everyone will be vetted top secret. In my capacity, I need top secret. Another person in another position in senior management might only need secret or something like that.
Thank you, Commissioner. You don't have to mention the names. I think those who will come will ask them the same question. And if there are reasons why they haven't been vetted, they will explain themselves. Can we then move on to the next topic, which is your responsibilities as the Deputy Chief of Police? That will be at paragraph 5 of your statement.
Thank you, Commissioners. Responsibilities as the Deputy Chief of Police, paragraph 5. As the Deputy Chief, Training and Innovation, I'm mainly responsible for the TMPD Academy, where we train Metro Police officers, traffic wardens, other officials, as per our academy curriculum. I am further responsible for police innovation, which include research, analytics, and information management for the department. Paragraph 6. Additional to the above position, I am also responsible for the work and functioning of the staff officer, which you might know it as a chief of staff. but it's a semi-military terminology, staff officer or chief of staff to the chief of police. I fulfill that role because the position is vacant at the moment. The position is currently on a brigadier level on the approved structure. Paragraph 7. My responsibilities here include: 1. Although the position on the approved structure is on a brigadier level, I am functioning on a deputy chief level. 2. Oversight on the office of the chief of police. 3. Strategic level coordination within the department. 4. High level administration. 5. High level IGR, specifically with Gauteng Government, SALGA, SAPS, et al. 6. Drafting of specific departmental documents, such as SOPs, directives, official letters for internal, which is the city, and external purposes. 7. Represent the Chief of Police at EXCO, MACO, Section 79 committees, high-level external meetings, forums, and/or events. Paragraph 8.
Commissioner, before you go there, can you just inform the Commission, this position of Chief of Staff, how long has it been vacant for? Do you know?
This position has been vacant for a very long time. Previously, I acted in this position officially, but then it was on a deputy chief level. The structure was then subsequently changed and put incorrectly on a brigadier level. The new structure that has been developed for the department, proposed structure that still needs to go for approval, it has been put back on a deputy chief level where it should be. It's a high stressful position, the right-hand person to the chief of police, as indicated by some of the functions that I have already mentioned. We have, over time in the city, a lot of vacant positions. We have had in the Metro Police many vacant positions for a long period of time. Since the Chief of Police, Yolanda Faro, has been appointed, I believe it was October 23, I think so. She immediately lobbied the city and the city manager to ensure that at least critical positions and high-level positions are being filled. Subsequently, the department has filled numerous positions. We're still in a position where we have put forward critical vacancies that are now very close to advertisement level, subject always to final approval by the city and available budget. But these are funded vacancies. One of the positions that we hope to fill would be this position of Chief of Staff, because it's a critical position.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think we're about to move on to paragraph 8.
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioners, paragraph 8. I'm further responsible for the management and coordination of unfair labour practices, arbitrations at the South African Local Government Bargaining Council, SALGBC. This includes 1, attending step 3 grievances, and this is grievances as per the COT collective agreement on behalf of the department/chief of police. 2, attending conciliation when required. 3, attending consultations with internal role players and appointed legal representation in preparation for the bargaining council. And 4, attend or coordinate the actual arbitration at bargaining council and or CCMA.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can we move on then to the next topic, which involves your further responsibility again? Now we're talking about the section deals with your acting stint as a caretaker of the asset protection and security services. Can you take us through that?
I can. It's number D, my acting stint as caretaker of asset protection and security service, paragraph 9, Commissioners. I was the caretaker for asset protection and security services, known as APSS, for the period 1 July 2024 to 28 February 2025. As the divisional head, in brackets, deputy chief post was vacant. The function was transferred from the office of the city manager back to the TMPD as from 1 July 2024. Paragraph 10. This position was ultimately taken up by the appointed Deputy Chief Revo Spies on 1 March 2025. Paragraph 11. As the caretaker of APSS, I did high-level management and oversight over the division. Paragraph 12. Upon assuming this task, I had to deal with the relocation of the APSS from the office of the city manager to the TMPD. I must hasten to state that when the APS transfer was done, I was not provided with a handover report as one would expect. I am aware, however, that a handover, and I say it in brackets, report was ultimately emailed to the Chief of Police by Ms. Paledi Marota, where I was also copied on the email on 10 April 2025. Now that is 9-10 months later, and I've already given over or handed over the function to Deputy Chief Spies. But continuing, Commissioners, on paragraph 13, the email is attached to Chief Yolande Faro's statement, which I attach as annexure SB1, which I will refer to. Paragraph 14. During my testimony, I will point out from the handover report that on what I agree with and what I disagree with in relation to the following subtopics. 14.1, the background to the transfer. 14.2, human resources related matters. And 14.3, budget and procurement related matters. 15, when I received the transfer of the APSS, I was aware of the tender in question comprised of the watchman component and the ad hoc component. Paragraph 16, we, in brackets, the Deputy Commissioners and Chief of Police, had monthly budget meetings and APSS budget performance was mentioned/discussed. During my stint, we dealt with ad hoc individually and provided services only with the necessary approvals, including documentation.
Deputy Commissioner, can you just explain what you mean where you say that you dealt with ad hoc individually?
As the tenders, Commissioners, make provision for ad hoc services, we would receive a request from a service delivery department that they need security services at a specific place, which is not part and parcel of the normal day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month deployment. Then we would assess that request, basically by doing a security assessment to review the situation to determine whether this is a legitimate request. And then we must sort out the budget thereof. You will find later, and I think it was also mentioned by Deputy Commissioner Spies and the Chief of Police, Ms. Faro, that we were on a continuous basis under budgeted for the function. So the yearly budget allocated on a regular basis for security services were not sufficient. So it would have been improper for us to approve any ad hoc site without looking into it. If a service delivery department then requests, we do an assessment. If we agree with them, then we determine the type of security that needs to be placed or put in place, and then they need to provide us with a GL, or the service delivery component within the city, falling mainly under the COO, would have to look for money. Last resort would be to approach the CFO to ensure that there is money for this, whether it will be available immediately or whether that will be adjusted during the budget process from implementing an approved budget right through upliftment of funds, right through the adjustment budget, so that at the end of the year your books balance and you don't sit with unauthorized expenditure. So that's how myself and the Chief of Police dealt with ad hoc sites in that manner.
Yeah, just so I understand properly. So you have a budget for watchman services, I think that's what it's called. That's what's allocated.
We call it watchman services for the security services, yes.
So you've got that budget. Does that budget also serve the ad hoc appointments, or are ad hoc appointments funded by the service units or your clients, basically?
If Madam Commissioner, if the budget is sufficient, which it was never, and that's clear in our financial planning and statements of the city, then it would have covered ad hoc as well. But due to the limited funds available for a financial year, if it's not an ad hoc service that has already been identified and has then become almost a semi-permanent situation, then no, you would not have funds available in that budget. You would have to look for additional funds, as I have already explained. That is how it was.
And the final approval for that scenario where you have to find additional funds,
Yes.
because this is not one of those that have almost become permanent now. Where does it lie? Does it lie with the CFO, or it lies in the TMPD, the final approval of that kind of request?
Such final approval will not lie within the TMPD unless it is covered with the approved budget. The Chief of Police, in her position as the group head or the head of the department, has certain authorities under whether it's automatically delegated per legislation or procedure and protocol, or whether it's purely from the MFMA. So she can manage her own budget that's been approved and allocated. So if it falls without that budget, there's a process where I'll use the example of upliftment of funds. A document is drafted by the department, recommended by the Chief of Police. Then it goes through the processes recommended by the CFO, and it's finally approved by the accounting officer, which is the city manager. So in such cases, the city manager would sign off on upliftment of funds. The CFO, I am not 100% sure to where his authority stretches, but I do believe he has the authority, in our case it's a he, Mr. Manisi, has the authority, and I speak under correction, to work within the budget that has been approved for the city. He can allocate and reallocate certain funding. Whether all of that must be signed off by the city manager or not, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Can you please go back to paragraph 11 of your statement and just clarify that? And please also explain to us what is the size of the APSS? How many people are in that division, and who has authority in relation to signing of documents? Like, for example, if an invoice comes in from a security company, who authorizes it for approval? And also who has authority in terms of issuing of work or additional sites or ad hoc security services that have to be provided? Because when you say I did high-level management and oversight. It can mean different things to many people. So just explain it the way you understand it.
Noted, Commissioner. I can elaborate on that. What is meant by high-level management and oversight over the division, I'm sure you would appreciate from my testimony already given, I have a full-time job position as the Deputy Chief Training and Innovation, which is a full-time position. Then I've got another full-time job as the Chief of Staff. Then I've got a part-time job in coordinating Step 3 grievances and arbitration matters. In a department of about 5,000 people, you can imagine how many cases I need to deal with on behalf of the department. So my high-level management and oversight over APSS probably took about 15 or 20% of my energy and time to just ensure that from the onset where we received this function without a proper handover, as is foot stewards, back to the department, my main aim was to, on a high level, to management to understand what this big thing entails. What is this big thing that I'm dealing with now? How many sites do we have in the city? Is it a true reflection of what we have? How many sites are priority? Why are they priority? How many sites do we cover? We don't even cover, I think we cover less than half of all our sites, but I believe Deputy Chief Spies might have given much more information on that, so I won't repeat that. And then also to ensure that the day-to-day running, which is done by Director Malachi and his team, is just there's oversight on that. So I didn't have hands-on experience on most of the matters. Some of the ad hoc sites that were referred to us as an example, I made sure, because it would cause additional expenditure, that I went on site personally with the team to determine what the status is. One of such sites would be Klipgat, waterworks, where a contractor finalized their duties. No planning was made prior to that for security. We just got the information through to my office that within a month's time or so, this company is going to vacate. They're done with the project. Now we must secure that. And if we didn't secure that, there could have been damage or vandalism into the millions. So as a city, as a department, we were basically forced to do so. And then we followed that process that I've already explained. So my high-level management and oversight was very limited. And I had no reason to mistrust at that time Director Malachi. Seemingly on paper and what I know from him then, he was an experienced senior manager in security. He had support, not much, but he had support, and they ran that division. The amount of people in that division, I can't go level to level, but it's approximately just shy of 1,300 security guards on contract still, not even fully absorbed into the city with all the benefits, but I believe Deputy Spies might have addressed that also, I'm not sure. And then some level of supervision and some level of management, and then you got to Dr. Malichla. I forgot his name. I'll get to his name just now, and Mr. Mashlangu and Director Malachi. And part of the function in those middle levels or junior levels, we had teams that's supposed to do, obviously, also the checkups at the different security sites to ensure that the contract that was awarded, a 2.9 billion rand contract, is managed correctly. And if a security company indicates that they, for argument's sake, place 4 people, security guards at the site, that actually happens. So I had no, at that stage, mistrust in the system and wanted to ensure that they run with the day-to-day running of this division and running the contract. On the sideline, we immediately had to start, as I said, with the fact-finding information.
Commissioner Bolhuis, I don't want you to go too far ahead,
Okay.
because it may be that in your statement, you're still coming to these things.
To some of it, yes.
So maybe just deal with the role you played in the allocation and invoices, their
Okay.
approval. And then the rest, I think the evidence leader will lead you through your statement.
Thank you. At a certain stage in my stint as the caretaker, I required Director Malachi to provide, once invoices have been signed by the operational component and then signed off by himself, he had to bring those invoices to me for co-signing. So he would approve the invoice after all the checks have been done, and I would co-sign. That was just a management mechanism to ensure that on paper there is nothing untoward. The allocation of ad hoc sites. It's not a written down process, but it was the practice that at least I had in place, that my office needs to be informed of ad hoc sites, like that explanation I gave about Klipgat and others. Because of the possible operational impact, and I am talking about that later, but I can just say this, it had to be brought to my attention because of operational, financial, and contractual impact. So never did I give the impression or the instruction to Director Malachi or his management team that they have a free rein or a carte blanche pertaining to the allocation of sites. Because you have to work within a budget. You have to work according to your priority plan and the sites that you have to secure. So if you then do your own thing, we're not going to stick to those things.
Commissioner, you say that you would approve because on paper everything would appear to be proper. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, yes. On the ad hoc appointments, did you not notice that there was a disproportionate allocation to, for example, an entity called Gubis 85? I think it's a PTY Ltd, not a CCES. Gubis 85. Did you not notice that it got a disproportionate number of allocations compared to the rest of the entities? Its allocations were far higher than those of other entities. I'm asking this in the
Yes.
context of your testimony that on paper everything looked proper. That may well have been so, but it should have, or rather alarm bells should have rung when this entity's name keeps popping up whenever there are ad hoc allocations.
Thank you, Commissioner. Look, I did not, in the time that the invoices came to me for co-signing, I did not pick up anything immediately, and I didn't have any mistrust at that time. However, and I do give evidence about this later, when the director of MAS, Management Admin Support, Director Veli Nwandule, is also responsible for finances, when he indicated that there could be some irregularity with invoices. At that stage, the finance section has indicated both to me as the caretaker and to Director Malachi, that they will have to follow a certain financial procedure, which then became the procedure they needed to follow, not bringing invoices back to me for co-signing. So that then stopped, and that financial procedure that was implemented by the financial section was then followed. And then subsequently, the director of MAS, Nwandule, picked up the irregularity because they will be in a better position to pick up on this because they have the contracts, the SLAs, the monthly expenditure, and if there's any further expenditure than what would have been the baseline from previous months or allocated to a certain service provider, they would pick it up. And subsequently, they did pick up. But I do give evidence about that a bit later.
Commissioner Bolhuis, at paragraph 13, we do mention a report which I want us to have a look at. You will see that on the very file that you have, that report would appear as the very first document. It will say number 1, just after the index to the annexures.
Yes.
Yes. Now, the Chief of Police, Yolanda Faro, testified that when she received an instruction that there has to be a transition of the APSS from the City Manager's office to the TMPD's office, that she tasked you to oversee that process. With that in mind, she testified that there was a report. That's something that also you touched on. That report was meant to facilitate the transitional period of that department. Would you accept that ideally you would have been at least the beneficiary of this report to assist you with the transition?
Yes, definitely.
Yes. And Commissioner Faro also testified that she received this report, unfortunately, somehow 9 months later. And this report came from a lady called Baledi Marota. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
In fact, you should be aware because you were copied on that email.
That is correct.
Yes, and the correct date would have been the 10th of April 2025.
That's correct.
And lastly, on that score, you would have, at least at that stage when this report came to your knowledge, you would have ceased acting or at least being a caretaker of the SP.
That is correct. I already provided a full handover in writing in the month of March.
Yes.
to the newly appointed Deputy Chief Spies.
Yes. But I want us to have a look at this report because it was meant to benefit you, or at least to assist you in the transitional period. We did say in your statement that we want to touch base on some, I think, 3 topics. You will see that on top, for the record, can you just read at least for the benefit of the Commission, the title of that document?
The title of this document, and it's from the Office of the City Manager, Commissioners, report on the transfer of Asset Property Protection Services Unit from the Office of the City Manager to the Tshwane Metro Police Department.
And then can you move to the purpose of that document, or at least the report?
The purpose of this report is to transfer the Asset Property Protection Unit function from the Office of the City Manager to the Tshwane Metro Police Department, TMPD, with immediate effect.
And then can you move into the background mentioned on that document?
I can. The background, paragraph number 3. The Executive Mayor issued a letter dated 15 April 2021 titled Placement of Asset Protection Function and Personnel in City Manager's Office the said letter stated the following. The implementation of the processes regarding the absorption of security guards is a critical deliverable for this administration. Extensive consultation and discussions have taken place on this matter to ensure it occurs seamlessly. It is for this reason that I took the decision to have this process placed and administered out of the City Manager's office through the department led by Mr. Nava Pillay. Furthermore, it is critical that the current asset protection function and personnel that have been identified who are based at the Tshwane Metro Police Department, TMPD, are moved to the office of the City Manager to report under Mr. Pillay with effect from 30 March 2021.
Just there, Commissioner, what do you understand by this initial move? And paying attention to what is mentioned on the very first sentence of what was supposed to be a letter of the 15th of April 2021, just to give us context of what your understanding is.
Yeah, firstly, I was not involved in this process at all. And then that first sentence, the implementation of the process regarding the absorption of security guards is a critical deliverable and so forth. My understanding of this is we have had, I don't know the time frame, but I think it's from 2019 onwards. We've had this council resolution that mentioned absorption of security guards. And there was a total mentioned, etc., etc. I don't have the information in front of me. But the absorption means that the security personnel that is in your service through a contract, whether that is a certain time period contract or a month-to-month contract or service delivery contracts that you have in place, when you do an absorption, you look at bringing those people, those security guards, into the employment of the city. They then become fully fledged employees. That is how I understand the term absorption.
And with your limited knowledge, as you said, you are not involved in this process. But what I'm tapping into, it's your experience, as you said, that you have 34 years into at least working in the city of Tshwane. What is the situation now with the absorption, if any, of the security personnel?
Thank you. I believe we have.
Do you mean, Mr. Musigiri, in 2021 or after reabsorption back to TMPD? What stage are you referring to?
Commissioner Bolhuis, more directly to after when the unit was handed back, because it seems to us that the purpose then was part of it was the absorption, and then now when it was handed back, what is the situation? I mean, the more pointed question would be: was that done?
The purpose, as I understand, was the transfer of the function. So the question of the absorption followed more that purpose. So the same people who were doing the function within the TMPD then get absorbed within the office of the city manager. But the purpose being more the transfer of the function, as I understand it.
Part of the question would relate to the debate that has been going on as to, I suppose there was a debate, or at least there has been a debate as to the pros and cons of outsourcing and absorbing some of the the security functions into the city.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. I can speak to that. My belief is that from this time, and I'll come to the part where the function has been moved back to the Tshwane Metro Police Department. But from this time, 15 April 21, up to the time that the function was moved back to the Metro Police Department, not much has moved in a direction of full absorption of the security guards. Since the appointment of Deputy Chief Spies, there has been a real movement. I do know for a fact, I've sat in some of the meetings, there has been consultative process between Deputy Chief Spies, the department, and Group Human Capital Management and political leaders and leaders of the city to fast track this process. And there is a plan in place that has been adopted by council. I can't speak to it, I don't have all the information, but that this absorption process is now moving forward. This will mean that certain benefits will come in at a certain time and other benefits will come in at another time. So that process is ongoing. I hope that touches or answers the questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolhuis. Can you then read into the record the last paragraph of point 3 under the background?
The last paragraph states, Commissioners, the instruction by the Executive Mayor for the Asset Protection Services Unit to be transferred from Tshwane Metro Police Department to the Office of the City Manager was implemented as directed. The transfer included the movement of staff reporting under Asset Protection Services Unit and Cost Center 4923 for the budget and expenditure management of the unit.
And then most importantly for us, would you move to the next page under the topic human resource related and just deal with that, what is at paragraph 4.1.1.
Do you want me to read it?
Read into the record and then we can just debate what that meant.
Noted 4.1.1 under human resources related matters, the subheading is staff and organizational structure. The organizational structure of the Asset Protection Services Unit was not amended during the transfer of the Asset Protection Services Unit from Tshwane Metro Police Department to the Office of the City Manager. Therefore, the transfer of the Asset Protection Services Unit back from the Office of the City Manager to Tshwane Metro Police Department will not affect the organizational structure of both departments. The Asset Protection Services approved structure consists of 4,106. Of this, there are 31 official employees, there's spelling mistakes there, apologies, on a permanent basis, and a further 1,287 contracted security officers.
I think this ties with a question that was raised by Commissioner Khumalo earlier on. Can you then explain to us on practical levels, what did this mean, especially when you have to deal with a human resource, and in terms of what you were receiving now as part of your responsibilities?
Yes, I can.
Maybe before you do that, the mathematics here doesn't seem to add up. You have 31 officials on a permanent basis and 1,287 contracted security officers, and yet in the first sentence you say there was 4,106.
I can explain that, Commissioner. I'll make it part of my explanation. Firstly, Commissioners, if I received this document in time for my caretakership, I would have not agreed in fully with the statement made here. You can't just say something and then it becomes the truth. It doesn't work that way. So just to say that the structure is moved from one place to from one reporting channel to another reporting channel and there's no implication or no difference, doesn't just make it the truth or doesn't make it correct or doesn't make it practical. Let me explain. Let me first explain then, Madam, what you have brought up, and then I'll carry on with the rest of the explanation, why I don't agree with this. It makes provision in the statement at the end that the structure, and they make reference to the approved structure, consists of 4,106. So the structure they're referring to is the organizational structure of APSS. Those are the boxes, as you well know. You've got your divisional head, all the different levels, and so forth, all the way down to the bottom levels where you will find 1,287 contracted security officers. So I don't have a problem with those figures at that time because I can't verify it. I'm assuming it's correct. The 4,106 is still the approved structure, but most of those positions are vacant. That's why the mathematics will not make sense. But then to transfer an approved structure, in this case 4,106, to the Metro Police and make an indication that there is no implication or an assumption is incorrect. It is not the practice of a municipality nor a department such as the Metro Police Department to have an elaborate structure with vacancies on it. And it's clear that in the time period from April 2021, let me get the date right, 15 April 2021, up to the point where this function was transferred back to the Metro Police, that there was no, I can't say no, I don't know, there wasn't a serious attempt and project in place, plan in place to fill the vacancies of this approved structure of 4,106. Now this is moved back to the Metro Police. Now the Metro Police sit with all these additional vacancies. That's the first thing. Most of these vacancies will then be unfunded. Why? Because there wouldn't automatically be a budget in place to fill it. You've got funded vacancies on the one hand and unfunded vacancies. If you then look externally, when the AG looks at a municipality and at our different organizational structure, macro, micro, the AG would indicate to us, and has, that you can't continuously for years on end sit with so many vacant positions. Either fill the positions or remove the vacancies, because it becomes an audit query. So that is where the problem comes in for the department. Hence, we've started a process, and I'm in the middle of that process. That's one of the functions I do as the Chief of Staff. I do organizational design and coordinate that process within the department. The structure that we have received, yes, approved at that time, still approved because it's still on the structure, approved structure, is not a feasible structure for the Metro Police. It's not implementable, it's not practical, it's not funded. We are restructuring that process totally, and it will probably be a lesser number because we are not in a financial situation, not the department, not the city, to fill 4,000 positions. I hope that gives clarity to your questions.
What I'm struggling to comprehend, Commissioner Bolhuis, is this. You are already inundated with 2.5 posts or positions. And just on the human resource element, and and given what you just discussed now with the commission, would you say this was the best decision to add this transition to your tasks?
Look, sir, commissioners, I think it was the best decision under the circumstances. I don't want to sound arrogant, but the chief of police looked at this and looked at her situation with her top management at that stage and what is available within the TMPD, and determined that I would be the best suited candidate to deal with this. And I'm going to leave it at that. Was it the best decision to move this function back to the Tshwane Metro Police? No. Well, you didn't ask a question about it, so I'm not going to elaborate, but I don't think it was a very good decision by the city to do so. Let me pause there.
Maybe let me ask the question differently. Is it possible, would it have been possible to assign this task to other deputy commissioners? And perhaps to be direct, to say someone like Deputy Commissioner Umashi Dlamini, would that have been possible as well?
It would have been possible for the chief of police to do so. But if you understand a policing environment or any semi-military environment, when you find yourself in such a situation, let's call it semi-crisis management, where the chief needs to take control of something and it's unsure what will come out of it, and it's an interim situation because we already expected as a department to appoint a deputy chief round about October 24 onwards, between October and December. But, you know, with recruitment processes, I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but it wasn't forthcoming, and then the appointment eventually only came in March the next year. It would be typical for a chief of police to give such a function, because it's interim, to the chief of staff. If it was more on a semi-permanent basis, which we didn't know at that time, she could have made another decision and given it to another deputy chief. We were under the impression it will be anything between 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 months, but it ended up being 8 months. So that is my view.
My concern was that you seem to have been overloaded, but I accept that answer. Can we then deal with, because we're dealing with the human resource element, can we deal with the budget and the procurement element of this move? And that would be, if you can just pick it up from 4.2 of that report.
I can. Commissioners, 4.2 is the heading Budget and Procurement Related Matters. 4.2.1, Appointed Security Service Providers. The city appointed 22 security service providers through tender TMPD 02-2016/.17 to supply the physical security, in brackets guarding, services to protect the property, assets and personnel of the city of Tshwane for a period of 3 years with effect from 1 February 2022. The monthly service contract for the appointed service providers amounts to 50 million, which equates to 600 million per financial year. On the next page on top, Commissioners, the security service providers provided a total of 2,559 security guards at 545 sites who operate at the CIRA Grade C security grading level to safeguard the infrastructure assets of the city against theft and vandalism. Do you want me to continue, sir?
Yes, because it still relates to
Okay.
to the budget, yeah.
For Commissioners, 4.2.2, 2023-24 adjustment budget. The operational budget allocation for asset protection services was increased by 305,611,361 rand from 489,374,219 rand and 15 cents to 794,985,580 rand. This was due to a request for additional funding, request submitted to Group Financial Services for Watchman Services. The original operational budget allocation for Watchman Services was 245 million for 2023-24 financial year, which was not enough to provide the guarding services through the appointed service providers. A shortfall of 305,611,361 rand was indicated. In response to this, the budget for Watchman Services was increased by the indicated shortfall amount to 550,611,361 rand. The 2023-24 capital budget allocation remained unchanged with an amount of 2 million rand under WBS level percentage dash 9.80100.1. And then there's a L or I, PRO1, W, for infrastructure asset protection. The budget provided is for the incorporation of electronic security system. However, the procurement is on the specification level. Should I continue with the indicative budget?
I don't think so.
Before you even go there, I need you to go back just to have a proper understanding of what you were inheriting, essentially. Because if you look at least what is glaring is that there was a clear shortfall already. What would have been the impact of this when it came to you? I accept that this document obviously became only came to your knowledge after the fact.
Yeah. Look, firstly, senior management in the city must all do a Municipal Financial Management Act. I think it's an NQS 6 level course. And it's expected of senior management to know, understand, plan, and proper execute budgets. So when I was instructed to be the caretaker of this function, I knew what the budget was for the financial year. Remember, now we're talking the 24-25 financial year, because the function was moved to us 1st July 2024, correct? When we then looked at the historic information pertaining to this budget, it was a clear indication to both me and the Chief of Police, and I don't want to speak on her behalf, but we work very closely together, that the budgets of the previous financial years were insufficient on a regular basis, if not at all times, which caused whoever was dealing with it, to follow a certain process to ensure there is funds allocated to ensure that services can be delivered through the financial year. I did exactly the same. In the first 3 months, I would determine what would be the actual expenditure. Thereafter, I could do a projection for the remainder 9 months, because you do also in finances in a municipality work with your monthly cost, but quarterly cost, and quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. By quarter 1, you have enough information, 3 months, plus baseline from the previous year, plus historic information to make proper projections for the rest of the financial year to ensure that service delivery does happen. We had the 22 companies, they provided services at certain infrastructure sites and properties of the city. And then once you determine in your projection that you are going to have a shortfall, it was clear to me that there was a regular short budgeting process, whether that was deliberate, whether that was a financial technique to deal with cash flow. I'm not a CFO, I don't know. But it was cumbersome for us to notice again that this financial year that I was the caretaker or part of it, that we have an under budget. So then we would, and which we did, we will look at the finances and we will draft a document that is called the upliftment of funds. So a document is drafted to indicate that this is the expenditure, this is the projected expenditure, we're going to have a shortfall of this, that, and the next thing. If you do it properly in the first 3 months and do your calculations and your projections, you can go with such a document to the city and it can be looked at. If you don't do this, you're going to find yourself at the adjustment budget process. Now, the adjustment budget process is exactly what it states. It's the adjustment of your approved budget. You can't legally, procedurally come and ask for more money in an adjustment budget. So if you don't do your work and you come to the adjustment budget only and ask for additional funds for watchman services, then it means the CFO in the city will have to find funds somewhere else within the approved budget and allocate it to watchman services. So that is what I was grappling with, and we went the route of early financial detection to determine we're going to have a shortfall. We started the process of upliftment, and that upliftment process was subsequently approved. It's recommended by the Chief of Police. It is recommended by the CFO. It is signed off and approved by the accounting officer.
And Commissioner, just to understand, it only relates to the ad hoc, to the watchman service, this budget, not the ad hoc services.
This relates to the total budget for watchman services and all information known to you. If additional ad hoc services comes in, it would not have been included in that, because you cannot do upliftment for funds or adjust your budget on maybes. It must be factual information. The books must balance. It must be available to be audited, to be clear cut that this is the finances allocated for watchman services and expended accordingly. So no, ad hoc services, unknown ad hoc services would not have been covered by that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Would you say, having considered this report, say if you had it when you were being given the task of handing over in a transitional period, would you say you would have benefited from this report if it came to you on time?
I can say I would have partly benefited, but this, in my view, is not a good handover report because it dwells on information that's readily available to anyone if you go look for it. I would have expected a handover report indicating to us as a department this, plus further historic information on the budget. Why was the budget done the way it was done? Why was it short budgeted for? What was the reasons? And what are the information, where's the information on all the sites that have been deemed critical, the sites that are not critical, the sites that we don't cover at all, what has been done in regards to filling the structure, what has been done in regards to human resources, the absorption, it doesn't really touch on that. So I find big holes in this report in hindsight, but it is what it is. As you know, I did not receive this report. We were in the dark and we dealt with it on an ongoing basis.
Maybe lastly, on the issue of the report or the handing over process, did you at any stage ask for a handover report or a handover meetings from the city manager's office, it being the city manager or the group head, Lady Marota, at any stage of the handing over?
Look, it was understood by us that we were supposed to get a handover report. I don't have documentation in front of me like emails and that, but we did have one specific meeting with the MMC for community safety. I will have to go check my records on that exact date and time, where we had Mr. Nava Pillay and his support team, Mr. Malachi and his team, myself, I believe the Chief of Police was also there, where it was agreed upon that all the information would be made available to us and in writing, emails, reports at a certain time, and that wasn't forthcoming. I didn't, perhaps, in hindsight, made enough of a follow-up, but if you've thrown in a deep end with such a thing, you find your way, and that's what we did. We started sourcing the information ourselves. We looked at what we had in front of us, and we were very busy starting the new tender as well, because we had to immediately, I think we started in August, immediately started with a new tender because the current tender was to expire soon, and it's quite a process in the city to start a new tender. So yes, I know about that one specific meeting. There could have been some emails as well. I'm not confident to say exactly how many or what it was, yeah.
Yes, okay,
thank you. Deputy Chief, I want to take you back to your response to the second last question by Mr. Musigidi. I just want to make sure that I understood you. Did you mean that there is no budget whatsoever for ad hoc security services?
Yes. Look, as I explained before, Commissioner, if ad hoc has come in already and it's now part of the operationalization on a daily, monthly basis, then that would have been counted in and worked in. Look, this was maybe unplanned for, but now it's part and parcel of the operations. That would have been covered by the budget.
But something that may arise from
Unplanned.
the point onwards, that's not budgeted for whatsoever.
No.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Musigidi.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolhuis. And just understand, this is no attack on you. The difficulty we have is that if the handover was mismanaged or was botched to begin with, and you were left to be on an autopilot and you had to find your way, we need to understand, because ultimately we now know that there were challenges that came with this transition when things happened without even your knowledge. And we trying to find out exactly where the problem might be. And this is like I said, this is no attack on you, but it's just trying to understand. Remember, as the commission, as we said, we don't even know, and the question was posed to you, we don't even know why this unit was initially moved. And it's not even clear why it was moved back again. But when that is done, the handover process is not done in a way that, as you testified, in the most, one would have said, acceptable manner to allow you to do what you're supposed to do. And it's really on that score that I keep on asking you this question to say, did you make sure that you do your best as well to make sure that you are given a proper handover?
Look, once the ugly things come out, it's not so easy to say you've done your best, because you scrutinize yourself and you think to yourself, what could you have done better? So I'm a very hard person on myself. Have we done the best? No, I don't think we have. Could we have done much better? Yes, we could definitely have done better. Could I personally have done more? I should have. And I stand for what I've done and what I haven't done. I'm an honest person. But it's clear, looking back now at what has transpired, that there are elements within the city and in our department that uses the processes and things in place. They use that as a mechanism for their corruption and for their ill doings. We were used as decent, law-abiding, loyal officials. Both me, the chief of police, other officials, we were used because it happened under our nose. And it's shameful. We could have done better. But it comes again to, you trust people. You don't want to enter into a space with an immediate mistrust. But if there would have been any form of indication to us, to me, I could have maybe put in more measures in place to ensure that the system is very tight and that wrong things can't creep through. I think that's all I can say about that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Deputy Commissioner, can I just to make sure that I understand the import of what you're saying, are you saying that the movement of APSS from the Office of the City Manager to TMPD, that in itself, is that what you're referring to when you say you were used? And had you known better, you would have responded better. Is that relocation that you're complaining about as you being used and taken advantage of?
Madam Commissioner, not necessarily, but that could be the case. I don't know.
Yes.
I'm referring to once the move was done to the department.
Yes.
And the day-to-day running of the division, which was handled by Director Malachi and his team. In that day-to-day running, yes, under our noses,
yes,
things happened. And in that we were used.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can we then go to what we say, the uglies? Can we now know that you did inherit as part of the transition, this tender 02 2016-2017. Can we deal with that? It's from paragraph 17 of your statement, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioners. Paragraph 17 under E, tender TMPD 02-2016-17. I inherited the above tender with the transfer of APSS. In this tender, the city appointed 22 security service providers to supply the physical security, in brackets guarding, services to protect the property, asset and personnel of the city of Tshwane for a period of 3 years with effect from March 2022. Paragraph 18,
Commissioner, I think we do have the names of the company, the 22 companies on record. Can you then go to paragraph 19?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paragraph 19, I had to oversee the implementation of this tender going forward until such time that the new Deputy Commissioner was appointed to take over. On to the next page, 20, paragraph 20. To reiterate the context of the tender, the above tender for the supply of physical security to protect the property, assets and personnel of the Tshwane Metropolitan Municipality originated from a request to advertise, which is a TAR, T-A-R, a tender issued by Mr. Tsukudu Malachi, Director Protection Services, on 8 July 2016, co-signed by the then Deputy Chief of Police Specialized Services, Mr. R.R. Mashlaule, and approved on 19 July 2016 by the then Chief of Police, K.S. Ngubeni, the late K.S. Ngubeni, may his soul rest in peace. The TAR and specifications are attached as Annexure SB2 to Mr. Revo's statement, and I need to not attach the same herein. The 21. The background to the tender has been dealt with sufficiently by witness Deputy Revo Spies and Chief Yolanda Faro, which I agree with and do not repeat.
Yes, carry on. Under the topic of uploading of purchase orders between January 2025 and February 2026.
Thank you, Commissioners. Paragraph 22 under F. I have come to learn that the Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Gareth Manisi, and Deputy Commissioner Umashi Dlamini communicated with each other on 5 March 2025 by sending messages through Sergeant Fani Nkosi in relation to the creation of purchase orders for ad hoc security services. Paragraph 23. The purchase orders created out of this process were registered on the TMPD system only on the following day, 6 March 2025. These included purchase orders for ad hoc services, ostensibly procured from Gubis 85 Solutions Pty Limited, in the aggregate amount of 13,635,133 rand and 60 cents. In brackets, it gives the number without VAT. It's 11,856,638 and 14 cents plus VAT. A spreadsheet listing these purchase orders is attached as Annexure SB3. All of these amounts were paid to Gubis 85 Pty Limited. Paragraph 24. Though these purchase orders were created and loaded on 5 and 6 March 2025, after my acting stint as caretaker of APSS, some of these purchase orders refers to work and services allegedly provided during my tenure as caretaker. 25. I am aware that Commissioner Revo Spies already pointed the obvious skewed allocation of work favouring Gubis 85 Solutions Pty Limited. Paragraph 26. I reiterated that I never gave permission, nor was I aware of such allocation of work to Goobies 85 Solutions Pty Limited during the time in question, and in particular January 2025, February 2025, or to any other company.
Commissioner Bolhuis, is that not itself irregular? That purchase orders are only created many months after the work is done? Is the practice not that in order to allocate work to somebody, a purchase order has to be created? Why is it here, for example, that on the 6th of March, you've got purchase orders created and loaded on the system, but the work in some instances was done the previous year in 2024?
Commissioner, I'm not a financial expert, but I'm not 100% sure about that process. I would assume that once the sites have been allocated to a service provider, you would receive an invoice. Then the invoice in the department will go to the financial section. A purchase order would be created, and then I believe it goes to supply chain management, to the buyers to do something, and then payment from the CFO's office.
So the purchase order is created after the invoice?
I'm under correction, but I do think so. I'm not sure.
I mean, isn't that a problem? Because my understanding of procurement is a purchase order is an indication of the goods and services that you would have ordered. And it will give you an indication of how many people, what is the price, and what is going to be deployed. And that prepares you then for when the work is done. The invoice that is issued will match the purchase order. And you verify. So you compare one with the other and you say, these are the goods and services that I've asked for. They were provided. The invoice matches the purchase order. Then I can make the payment. But if you get a purchase order after the invoice and many months after the work is done, what service did you procure and what did you use to procure the service?
I see your sentiment there, Commissioner. We have to also keep in mind that this is an approved contract, approved service providers, and ad hoc services were then allocated to a service provider, in this case, seemingly irregular. But let's say for argument's sake, it wasn't. And in an approved contract with an approved budget, and then it's invoiced, and then it goes to the department financial section for the further processing, and that includes the purchase order. But as I say, I'm not in a position to speak on finances that much. The CFO will be able to clarify that in detail, and even Deputy Commissioner Dlamini, who's in charge of our financial, overall in charge of the financial section in the department.
But it worries me because you say at some point before the process was changed, you were responsible for co-signing invoices after Director Malachi had approved them.
Yes.
So if you are not aware of the process and we need to get answers from the CFO, it worries me because it means that people who are approving and co-signing invoices running into millions, I mean, this is 13.6 million, are not aware what the process is, and they are just signing and people are being paid public funds without understanding the process. It's a concern for me.
Noted.
Commissioner Bolhuis, are you then saying in response to the question by Commissioner Khumalo, as, and I use the word loosely, as the head of the department at the APSS unit, you played no role? Or what role did you play? Let me put that, what role did you play when ultimately it comes to the processing and the payments of the service rendered, especially on the ad hoc basis?
Yes, once the operational part is concluded, let's say documents are provided, invoices are generated from the service provider, and it comes through APSS. It goes to the financial section within the department. Once it's there, I do not play another role there. There is a financial process that they follow that has to be in line with the MFMA supply chain management procedures of the city, etc., etc. So I don't play a role how it's put on the system. We as a city use a SAP system. I don't play a role how it moves from the finance section to supply chain management, and I don't play a role how it moves from supply chain management to the CFO and his office for actual payment. I can, as a senior official, make inquiries about late payments, why this has not been done, was all invoices submitted, those kind of things, but not physically part of that financial process.
I know you say somewhat further on in the statement that you had no involvement, you were not informed about the allocation of these
Yes,
ad hoc
I wasn't.
sites. Your internal operating procedures, they don't require that you should be informed when there's a request for ad hoc services so that you can approve, or even it's just for noting. Don't your operating procedures require that?
It is required. It's not a written down standing operating procedure SOP. Well, it should be, but it wasn't at that stage. But as mentioned before in some other remarks I made earlier, is when there's an operational impact, financial impact, and contract impact, I must, as the head, as the overseer of APSS, I must be informed. Because although Director Malachi runs that unit or section division, he runs it basically in totality, day-to-day running, managing the contract. If it starts affecting the budget, he doesn't sit in the top management budget meeting between the deputy chiefs and the chief of police to determine what the status is of the budget, the expenditure, what we must do with upliftment of funds, what we must do with the adjustment budget, etc. So it was clear in our communications, in our meetings, in the way we worked, that this information should have come to my office, because prior in 2024, once again, Klipgat is a very good example. We were informed, I was informed about the ad hoc requirements. It was looked into, it was investigated, it was allocated, funds were made available for that. Whether there was good planning or not, that's another matter. That's the internal issues of a municipality. So there's no ways that the management of APSS could have thought there's no need for the head, the overseer, the deputy chief, not to inform him about these ad hoc services, which will have a severe effect on our budget and operational implications. So yes, ma'am.
Commissioner, just maybe let me understand it from a different angle. It is correct that you wouldn't, as part of your job, be involved in confirming that the actual warm bodies were actually placed by service providers as per invoice. That would not be part of your job.
Definitely not. That would be part and parcel of the management and instructions by Director Malachi. And I did mention it earlier as well about the mid-level people that were supposed to go and check up on the service provider. We call it contract management, to ensure that they actually do what they say they do. Because if they don't, there's a penalty clause that must be implemented. That's part and parcel of the contract and the SLAs between us, the city, and the service providers. So it would be their function.
Yes, so you are not involved on that level, on confirming the warm bodies were actually deployed, but also you're not involved in the final leg where the processes, the payment processes are engaged. And we're trying to understand then your oversight role. Where does it start? Where does it end? And is it by design, which is something that this commission might have to speak to when it makes a recommendation? Or is it something that had to do with you perhaps being overwhelmed by 2.5 posts that you're already engaged with? Or are there any other factors that maybe we need to consider that led to this difficulty? What's your comment?
Yeah, look, in hindsight, I would say it's a combination of some of those factors, and it was a flawed process. I understand when the commissioner raised the serious concerns about not knowing the actual financial processes, how it unfolds. And if one look at it, standing back and look at it like you now looking at it holistically with a bird's eye view, you need to be more hands-on, especially if your staff is not in place, your systems are not in place, you don't have all the resources. As Deputy Chief Spies is, and as he continues to involve himself more and more into this space and putting systems in place and instructions and so forth, more information is coming out and it's managed in a much better way. So I would believe, yes, a combination of those things, but definitely flawed from my side. Oversight should have included the complete process till it leaves the financial office when it goes to supply chain management. Whether that would have stopped irregularities, I doubt it. But look, if you have to fall on your sword for not doing enough, you have to fall on your sword.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, can we then move to the next topic, which deals with, I think we touched on it a bit, the allocation of...
I'm just looking at time. Maybe let me ask my question and then it will take us to lunch. Because I see you have 2 minutes. If you're starting a new topic, it's going to compromise it. Just out of interest, Commissioner Bolhuis, did the Auditor General raise any issues in the 24-25 financial year about the ad hoc security services? Was there any finding in relation to those? Do you know?
I can't recall, Commissioner, but I can't say with certainty. I would have to check. Once again, a CFO would be able to immediately answer that, but I can't recall. I don't think so, but I'm not sure.
And how does it work with your departments? Is there an internal audit that audits individual departments and then you submit your reports for the full audit of the city? Or is TMPD audited individually? How does it work exactly?
We have internal audits in the city. It falls under the Group Audit and Risk Department, GAR, and they have the internal auditors. They do internal audits as they see fit in all departments. They do further internal audits if there's a pre-indication by the AG that there's something untoward or something that they've picked up irregular in a department or in multiple departments. They also advise on a high level what procedures and systems to be and policies to have in place to ensure that we don't necessarily cause our own demise by causing unnecessary audit findings. Then in the department, in the Metro Police Department, we have a very small component that works closely with the internal auditors, but also looks internally to educate, to coordinate, and to manage possible audit issues, and to ensure that management is aware of where there could be issues and where management action plans must come into place to ensure that we rectify matters. So those are the processes in place.
And will you check for us to see if they did not flag this issue of
For
allocation
APSS.
of ad hoc security services?
I will check in the break. I'll see if I can find that information.
You may have to do it in a supplementary statement.
That's fine.
I don't want you to just say, I checked, this is what they said. Because remember, this must be evidence before the commission.
We will do so, Commissioner, definitely.
All right, thank you.
Let us adjourn and resume at 2 p.m.